Our speaker is Joe Cirincione, who is often referred to as our nation's most inspirational advocate for reducing the threat of nuclear weapons. He is the author of a very compelling new book entitled Nuclear Nightmares: Securing the World Before It's Too Late.
There's a man named Eric Schlosser who wrote Fast Food Nation. Maybe you read his book. He just wrote a book called Command and Control. The New York Times just named it one of the top 100 books of the year. Command and Control. It's about the nuclear accidents that we've had in this country where we almost blew ourselves up. There's 11, depending on how you count, 14 different times we came this close to blowing ourselves up. There was an accident with a B-52 bomber flying over North Carolina where it disintegrated in flight and several bombs dropped from the bomb bay of the B-52. One of these hydrogen bombs fell all the way to the ground. There were 7 safety switches that are supposed to prevent that bomb from going off. 6 of them failed. 6 of them failed. One small dollar circuit prevented that hydrogen bomb from destroying a good portion of North Carolina. Just in 2007, in case you think this is ancient history, a B-52 flew off from Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota carrying 6 cruise missiles on its wings that it was bringing down to Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana for retirement. We were decommissioning them. They were going to be destroyed down there. Unbeknownst to the crew, by accident, 6 live nuclear-armed cruise missiles were loaded on that plane. It flew those nuclear cruise missiles all the way down. They landed. They spent the night on the tarmac. Nobody knew they were there, guarded by just the normal security, a guard, a barbed wire fence. The next day, one of the crew looked, and he looked at the cruise missiles, and he saw there was a little red dot on the nose of the missiles, the dot that tells you that's nuclear, not conventional. He told his commander didn't believe him. They found out it was true. They picked up the phones, they called it. The really bad news, Minot, back in North Dakota, never knew they were missing. Never knew they were missing. A friend of mine used to be the commander of the Strategic Command. He said if you had asked him before this happened, what were the chances of this happening, he would have said 0. It can't happen. So you think you're safe? You think you don't have to worry about these kinds of accidents? If this kind of thing is happening in the United States, where we have the best command and control system in the world, what's going on in Russia? So I understand why Israel decided, even before there was an Israel, that they needed nuclear weapons. They had to start getting them for their own security. I understand that, but whatever value those nuclear weapons may have had in the early history of Israel, they're not necessary anymore. Israel's got enough conventional military power to defeat any foe or combination of foes. It has a vested interest in making sure no other country in the region gets the one weapon that can destroy Israel. And in order to get that, in order to have their assurance, you can't just play nuclear whack-a-mole. You can't just keep whacking one country down after another. At some point, Israel's going to have to take the bombs out of the basement and put them on the negotiating table. But in order to do that, it's going to have to be in the context of a regional peace settlement. It's going to have to be where all the countries of the region recognize the territorial integrity of each other, and there is no existential threat to Israel from outside its borders. Now that's a heavy lift, but we might be a little closer to that than we think. These peace talks between the Palestinians and the Israelis, one of these days they're going to work. One of these days they're going to work. And I say that because I've seen equally improbable peace talks work in my time. We all have lived through some of the most remarkable times in human history where things that people said were impossible actually happen. We've seen the Vietnam War end and that country unite and welcome back the people who bombed it in the spirit of reconciliation and friendship. We've seen Germany unite. We've seen Eastern European countries overthrow dictatorships that ruled them for centuries. We've seen the Soviet Union collapse. We've seen Protestants and Catholics who swore never, never, never shake hands and together rule on Northern Ireland. We've seen a man walk out of a prison cell that held him for 28 years to become the leader of a free and democratically ruled Southern Africa. And it's his quote I think of all the time. It's always impossible. It always seems impossible until it's done. So even that can be done. I don't think this balance of terror that we have is more diffuse now than it was during the Cold War is stable. I think you're an optimist if you think that you can keep tens of thousands of nuclear weapons in human hands and not have some of them go off. It is going to happen. So our job, our generation, the next generation, is to try to minimize the chance of a nuclear weapon ever being used again, as President Kennedy said, by accident, miscalculation, or madness. And for my money, you want to eliminate those weapons to the lowest as quickly as you can. Now, maybe you don't agree with me. Maybe you think it's crazy we can't actually eliminate nuclear weapons. And I can't think of a military mission that requires the use of one nuclear weapon today. There hasn't been for 68 years. And we've been in some tough spots and lost some tough wars and had troops and our citizens threatened in numerous instances. And we've never used a nuclear weapon, neither has anybody else. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you need 10. Maybe you need 50. Maybe you need 500. We have 5,000. We have 5,000 weapons. And the really bad news is, so do the Russians, in their active stockpile. Every step we take to reduce that, to bring that down, not only saves us money, but makes us a whole lot safer. So that's what Plowshares Fund is doing. That's what I'm doing. That's the message of Nuclear Nightmares. Let's walk down that path. Let's reduce the risk. Let's try to prevent the use of a nuclear weapon ever again and get down to that world where we may be able to someday see the elimination of that very, very last nuclear weapon.